Hey all, this is 012 Boku coming back at you with another movie review, and we are on the last one. It's been an odyssey, and I know you've had to put up with a lot of James Bond stuff, but it has been an odyssey, my friends, and a great odyssey at that, at least for this part of the action films, since I'm now doing things in a different vein. But we are on To Die Another Day, the last of the original Bond films within the order, and man, oh man, is it, is it something. And sorry if you hear me cough a few times, I have been dealing with a lot of sinus stuff the last couple of days, for the last few weeks, not been fun, but hey, we gotta do what we can in that regard. Figured I'd point that up a little bit more for us too, so yeah, my part here isn't chopped up like I know sometimes it is. But yeah, Die Another Day, the last of the original Bond films. And I know, and also, because you guys love it, here's the leaflet. I know you guys aren't, possibly really into this one. I know Die Another Day was not viewed as the best Bond film to many, and even I can go, know that it is not the best film. And I would say, if you wanted to compare it to recent ones, it's not as bizarre or bad as, it's not as boring as For Your Eyes Only or as bizarre as Moonraker was, but at the same time, it is also not a complete classic like, The Living Daylights or License to Kill or Goldeneye, which I think is the greatest of all the Bond films in my, well, yeah, I really think Goldeneye is one of the pitch perfect Bond films that had everything in it, and like not just that, or Connery ones such as You Only Live Twice, From Russia with Love, you know, View to a Kill, all that stuff, like the real good one, also Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun, all those great films. But, it's still a good film, and I would have it be on par with everything today. The only thing is the one character who, she's alright in the film, but I've never really liked her that much as an actress, and I didn't really care for her character that much, is this person right here. Yeah, Halle Berry as Jynx. And I hate to say it, I don't know why. I was never a big fan of Jynx. I didn't really get into her that much. Halle Berry does alright in the film, but I'm not a huge Halle Berry fan. And, uh, like, Halle Berry does not do it for me in this film. Because it's like, she has way too much of a cocksure attitude for her character, too, that I can't get into. And I know fans really loved her, and for the people who really loved the movie, they wanted Jynx to have her own spy movie. I'm sort of glad that fell through because I don't know how well that would have turned out. And I'm glad it didn't turn out because I know they're trying to sort of rectify that with the upcoming Bond film. But yeah, let's not go down that road because I don't want people to hate me because, oh my god, Zach is, or 012 Boku's Zach is a racist because he doesn't like Halle Berry. Not a racist, but, it's my opinion not to like Halle Berry, and I've really not liked Halle Berry and too much of stuff, and believe me, you'll see that when we get to the X-Men movies and other things, and hey, So, let's see, as we, continue on, we have the story of this one where we have three men riding out into the sea, riding the huge waves into, I think it's a Pyeongchang, North Korea, if I got that right. Sorry if I butchered it, but yeah, they were riding into North Korean territory where they're avoiding the mines on the beach and all the bunker heads, and we see it's James Bond with two South Korean agents that he's with, and they stow away into Vietnam, and they're they're making a helicopter go off course, and a helicopter going off course is by a African conflict trader of diamonds, which, as you know, those diamonds are illegal to take, or they're counterfeited. I don't know what it is with the African conflict diamonds. I know there's something in real life about them that makes them rare and illegal to sell. I just forget which. But Mr. Van Buren, this German guy, or American German guy, I forget which, lands because Bond and his men make the helicopter go off course. Bond comes and commandeers it with his men, and they pretend to be the pilots, and Bond pretends to be Mr. Van Buren. And as they go, they head to the South Korean or North Korean base, headed by Colonel Moon, who I forget who the actor's name is, Colonel Moon, but he goes there, and there's an agent that Bond meets while in disguise. His name is Zhao, played by Rick Yoon, who he meets. They shake hands, and Zhao, using a very high-tech cell phone with a pad on it, or pad cell phone, I forget which, but he basically scans Bond's face as Van Buren, and he discovers that Van Buren is James Bond. We have Colonel Moon, whose introduction is beating up a punching bag, and there's a North Korean soldier inside, and I guess it's a anger therapist he was beating on, because it's like he says in North Korean, I'm like, that'll teach you to lecture me. And then as he's getting ready to leave to go meet Bond, he's like, find me another anger therapist. And I'm like, wow, holy crap. Beats up on the poor guy, beats him to death more than likely is what happened. And so he goes on and he goes down to be Bond. I should also say that the scene in the North Korean when Bond and his men are making their way down through the waves on the North Korean coast, that scene was actually done in Hawaii on the wave areas called Jaws in Hawaii, which is some of the biggest waves in the world, and it was done by 3 professional surfers. So very cool how they got the scene for the movie, pretending to make that the North Korean coast. I thought that was a nice little touch. So Colonel Moon comes out to see Bond. Bond is showing him the diamonds. Bond beforehand laced the diamonds with C4 inside as an assassination attempt to kill Colonel Moon and whoever else of his men. What happens is you also have Bond, because I guess Van Buren wanted to see these weapons that Colonel Moon and his men made to take out the people that they have. And what happens is there's these hovercraft vehicles that float over the North Korean and South Korean demilitarized zone, which is a whole bunch of mines in that zone where nobody could go near without being blown up upon. Because I guess there's like proximity mines, or I think it's proximity mines or something. But you have Bond checking these out, and he's seeing them, and it looks like the exchange is going good until Zhao goes up to Colonel Moon, basically blows Bond's cover, and Colonel Moon picks up this one missile gun, and he's like, I forgot what he says, what type it is, but he's like, it's with depleted uranium shells, naturally. And Bond just goes along with it being all cool. He's like, yeah, naturally. And then Colonel Moon shoots the helicopter that Bond and his men arrived in, killing Bond's South Korean agent men that he was with. And Bond was trying to fight back, but North Korean men grab him, and they're holding him, and you have Colonel Moon turn around. He's like, so now how do you propose to kill me, Mr. Bond? Or the other way around, but you get the gist. And what happens is you have Bond trying to struggle to get to him, and you have Colonel Moon saying, so the West still thinks they can police Korea and North Korea specifically, you guys will never learn. I've had a Western education, majored in Western hypocrisy, and I thought that was a real, when I in 2002 when this came out, because I was very naive still at the time, I thought that was a real major, but I'm like, Western hypocrisy. Oh, how like he thought like they were brainwashing kids. Which and sometimes and stuff in colleges nowadays, that's sadly true. They sometimes brainwash people now in certain colleges and stuff, or they at least make things very one-sided. So, I still find it messed up, and in some ways, Colonel Moon may be right in today's schooling. I mean, who knows? Not to say that that's what goes on, but colleges and campuses across the world can talk about very, very questionable things. So, hey, but not getting into that little can of worms. But either way, Colonel Moon wants, or no, yeah, General Moon, Colonel Moon's father, showing up saying, I'll be right there, son. What happened? I saw an explosion, from the helicopter that blew up. So Colonel Moon is wanting his men to move the hovercrafts, get him out of there. And you also have Bond about to be assassinated by his men. What happens is Bond, flicks a switch on his watch like that, and then all of a sudden the C4 explodes with the guy who was examining the diamonds gets killed, and they go on. Zhao's in the middle, like near the blast, so he gets flipped. He doesn't get killed, but he has like diamonds all littered and embedded in his face, and like so like Bond's trying to escape. He's hopping over things taking out men. He commandeers the hovercraft, and he starts going to chase after Colonel Moon. And there's this whole awesome chase, within a demilitarized zone where Bond is shooting like the proximity mines to take out other men that are getting near him. You have Zhao trying to use the other hovercrafts to take Bond out. Bond basically like takes all these guys out in thrilling fashion as we see, and we have Colonel Moon versus Bond in a very nice little fight at the beginning here, and like what happens is I think Bond kicks or hits Colonel Moon back. Colonel Moon gets sucked into like the ventilator fan. I mean, luckily it has a grill on it, so he's like stuck there like that. And Bond sees they're about to go over the side. There's this bell that's there, so they go crashing through this like little bell monastery area to where Colonel Moon was still on the hovercraft as it went over the side. They crash into this raging river in the hovercraft, and you see Colonel Moon's body get swept down into the river. And you see Bond in a hilarious thing where he's holding onto the bell, and the bell's, survived the part of it, and it's dinging back and forth, and, Bond jumps out for it, and he says in a classic line after wiping his mouth, it's like, oh, saved by the bell. And, so, really cool thing. What happens, though, is Bond, I guess is going to start to think how to get out of there, but General Moon, Colonel Moon's father, shows up with a bunch of men, so Bond's having to surrender. He's going to be held captive, and like you have Colonel Moon say, you killed my son, and he like has Bond get shuffled off, and then the whole beginning of the film with the opening credit sequence with Madonna's awesome, which I have to say Madonna made an awesome song. Die Another Day by Madonna is a very nice opening Bond song. In my opinion, minus also Casino Royale, I think these two were the last really good Bond themes to be made in any movie. Die Another Day and You Know My Name in Casino Royale. But the whole scene is basically Bond just getting trounced up, hit, tortured, and done in very unique ways. So we know Bond goes through a whole ton of pardon my French, shit in this movie, and he's put through hell. And I mean, it usually happens to Bond. In most Bond films, Bond does end up getting captured one time or another, which even Daniel Craig's movies have that. Like the original Bonds, didn't happen in every movie, but Daniel Craig does get caught quite a bit in his films. And I actually like a very good spy movie where the hero gets captured, at least for some time. I don't know why. I've always enjoyed those situations of peril and how they get out of it, and will they get out of it? So I've always enjoyed those types of things. And as we find out, Bond gets tortured. He goes through a whole bunch of stuff. And, I should say this on a side note. The one thing that I did not like in this film is you had Lee Tamahori go that his opening credit scene was a part of the whole film and not just a pasted pre-credit sequence, as he says the other films have done, or some of the other films have done. And I got very annoyed and upset by that because even before I had seen all the Bond films, I'm like, a lot of the Bond films have always had something to do with the original story of the main story. So what do you mean by that, Lee Tamahori? You're not this god who gave us the best opening sequence of all the Bond films. I mean, yours was an epic one to be sure, but it's not the best one. And just like, oh, it's just a pasted on pre-credit sequence. And I'm like, screw you, Lee Tamahori. I mean, props for doing this movie, Lee Tamahori, but really, screw you for saying that because most of the Bond films have a great opening that's important to the rest of the film. If there's two that stick out in my mind that don't do anything for the pre-credit sequence, but they're good fun, is the Goldfinger pre-credit sequence really had nothing to do with the rest of the film, and the For Your Eyes Only pre-credit sequence had nothing to do with the rest of the film. All the other beginnings have something to do with leading into the main film. So I did not appreciate that. I still don't like that to that day. You come off like an arrogant fool, Lee Tamahori, and so you can keep your arrogance and do it because you have possibly one of the most hated Bond films on record. Because I know there's a lot of people who do not like Die Another Day. So, you shot yourself, boo, in the foot there, Lee Tamahori. So, to you. But anyway, as the film moves on, we see that Bond was held captive for about a year. Being tortured on and off. Them trying to get information out of Bond, who he was working for. Who betrayed his son while his son was in England or America. Majoring, going to school there because he thought a Western education would help his son learn some peace because Colonel Moon, maybe for North Korea, but he also seems not like a bad guy. He'll do what he can to protect his country, but he also doesn't want to start war unnecessarily. And it seemed like he wanted to have his son, Colonel Moon, be a bridge between the two worlds. Obviously, Colonel Moon did not learn that correctly or was never going to change given his mindset. So, hey. What happens is we see how General Moon is trading Bond for another prisoner. We don't see who this prisoner was, but General Moon asks him, for the last time before I let you go, because it's out of my hands now, who betrayed my son? Who is his ally in the West? And Bond just goes, the same person who betrayed me, which is very cool, because the person who, made his son, I guess, betray his father's hopes is the same person who set Bond up. So, that's a very interesting tidbit throughout this film, too. And we see as Bond is walking to, we hear, I think, American or a British voice over the radio, and Bond is walking towards it. We see how, Bond walks towards it, and we see Zhao, it's either Zhao or Zhao, and I forget, one of the two, Zhao or Zhao, I think it's Zhao. We see how Zhao is walking towards him, still with his hair, and he's still got the diamonds embedded in his face, but you see Bond look at Zhao with a worried expression. He's like, Zhao, so, I'm being traded. And he's like, Zhao just says, your time will come. As a threat, meaning, this won't be the last time we see each other. But, Zhao's being traded back to North Korea, and Bond is being traded back over to the Allied side. And we see Bond walking over. We see two people. We actually see one man who's part of the NSA named Falco, who basically, is over there seeing the overseeing the prisoner exchange by Bond. And we also see how Colin Salmon, who is back as Charles Robinson, is there overseeing Bond. Bond sees Robinson. He actually gives him a wave, hey, nice to see you. But then all of a sudden we see American soldiers grab Bond and they inject a sedative into his shoulder to where he, passes out. They're taking him and they're checking him over. They're saying they're seeing what they did to him. where they had scorpions sting him and they would administer an antidote after the poison would be in his system for a little bit to make sure he'd stay alive. And, they're checking him, like, for other than his injuries during torture. They're saying, physically he checks out, and then they say, liver not too good, so it's definitely him. So, basically saying by all the smoking and drinking Bond has done over the years, why his liver isn't too good. But hey, I mean, that was a nice little joke. I think that was Charles Robinson over the radio saying that. So that was a nice little thing for Robinson to give. We also have I forget where Moneypenny shows up in this one. Yeah, because I know she shows up in a few points there. I know where she shows up because we have Bond waking up. Sorry, because I went ahead there, but we have Bond waking up in a hospital room. And he's, realizing, the M comes in. He basically gives a little, like, sort of pathetic wave to M, but he gets up and he realizes as he's walking towards them that, Bond is behind a, glass case, basically being kept as a prisoner by his own allies, too, while he's being cared for. And, M breaks down the situation. She's like, I wouldn't have traded you at all. Your trade came at too high a price. Zhao, did a terrorist act, and I think it was like, it was China. Like, they had their allies in China. He did a terrorist act in China, killed a lot of innocent people, innocent Chinese, innocent Americans. I think even some British folks were killed. So Zhao killed a lot of innocent people, and they caught Zhao. In order to get Bond back, they had to trade Zhao. So M wasn't too happy, and Bond's like saying, I never asked to be traded. I never wanted to be. You could have left me there. I would have never given up our country. And have you ever found the person who betrayed me? And then, M's like saying, well, that's not important. You're in trouble. You have to stand trial. You're basically a relic. We can't use you. This is it. And what happens is she leaves Bond to ponder. Bond hits his head on the glass, and he hears the beeping of his monitor because he's tied up to a heart monitor. So what happens is he, lays down, basically puts himself almost in like a deep sleep trance to where he's actually slowing his own heart rate, which, very dangerous probably. None of us should attempt, but he slows his own heart rate to the point to where he flatlines. And, we have nurses, and male and female nurses coming in and, trying to resuscitate him. They're about to shock him with the paddle boards. And what happens is Bond regains himself really quickly. I think he shocks the doctors with the paddle boards, which is lucky he didn't kill them. So he shocks the two male nurses and the doctor, takes them out, and the one female nurse falls back. And, I think Bond gives her a wink or he says something to her. I can't remember, but she's all smiling, thinking she's hot. So Bond basically escapes, and he realizes he's on like a British destroyer ship, and he escapes the British destroyer ship by jumping in the harbor. And he realizes he's right outside of Hong Kong. And what happens is he goes to a hotel to where he sees this person named Chang, and he asks for his best room and a bottle of champagne and a whole bunch of different other things. And Chang's like, oh, so we should get this for you, Mr. Bond. Absolutely, Mr. Bond. Shut up! Like he yells at like his men, like, don't we won't refuse Bond. He may be all matted, long-haired, beard, and not looking good, but we're gonna take him in. So that was such a funny thing. And the cool thing with Chang is, I'll get to explaining Chang because Chang has one more senior. Chang was supposed to be Wei Lin. Wei Lin was Michelle Yeoh was going to be offered this cameo role again in Die Another Day, but I think this is 2002. I think this was around the time that Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was done, or something around that time. So Michelle Yeoh was busy; she couldn't do it, so they went with that new guy in Chang to be the character. But that would have been cool to see Wei Lin come back for die another day. That would have been an awesome thing to see, to see Wayland return. And in fact, I would have took Wayland again over Jynx, but hey, like I said, not hating on Halle Berry because of who she is, but never cared for her as an actor, didn't care for the character, and just gonna remind you of that, folks, didn't care for Jynx in this movie, but I also will say this too, I really don't like Halle Berry that much as an actress, but that's just me, alright? So, once again, don't chop my head off for it. Give me a moment. I'm going to go grab my water. I am thirsty. I will probably do my best to hopefully edit this out. So be right back. Say, guys, doing these podcasts and not having any water or anything, no matter how long you're gonna go, not a easy thing to do. But very hard nonetheless. Doing all this talking, and as you guys see, I'm a little animated in my videos. So hey, but. And also raw off the cuff, so if I sound like I'm rambling, I apologize. But as the movie continues, we see Bond in his hotel room in Hong Kong, shaven, nice clean face, cut his hair, so it's all that nice smooth transition, had a shower too, looks really good. And as he's finishing himself up, we have this nice looking Asian woman come into the room. She says she's compliments of the hotel, and she's a masseuse, and she says, I'll give you any massage your heart desires. And he comes up to her, starts being all suave, starts kissing her on the neck and hugging her close, and then she jokes around. She's like, I'm not that kind of masseuse. And then he goes, oh yeah? Well, I'm not that kind of customer. And then what happens is he, I think she had a gun on her hip, so he takes it out of her hip from the hem of her dress, points it at her head. She's all shocked and holy crap, how did he find it? He then takes a one of those glass ashtrays and chucks it at his closet window. The closet window breaks to where a few more agents are inside, and Chang is inside too, and they're recording, Bond either going to have sex with this woman or spill certain information. And what happens is Bond's pointing the gun at him, and he's like, you didn't think I didn't know you were Chinese intelligence, Chang? And Chang's like, Hong Kong's our turf now, Bond. Because they're being all secretive. And what happens is Bond lowers his gun and tells Chang and his men to get out. He sends the other people out of the room, and he keeps Chang there with him. And Chang's like, well, what do you want? And he's like, I want you to help me find Zhao. I know Zhao killed a lot of innocent Chinese. I know you want to get back at them, and you want to have vengeance against him. He has information I need too, so if you can help me get to him, I'd greatly appreciate it. So, oh wait, yeah, and Chang's like, well, I'll have to ask Beijing. So, Chang goes off to do that. You have Bond getting ready to check out of the hotel. You have Chang's hand Bond some Mr. Bond, complimentary stuffs of the hotel. And he shoves this thing over and he picks it up. There's a passport inside, I think there's maybe some ammunition and a few other things and there, and he looks at the passport and Bond's like, Cuba? And you have Chang say, it seems like Mr. Zhao has lost himself in Havana. Say goodbye from us. So Chang has that awesome line at the end, which I love. And Bond just nods, takes it here. I think he gets on the plane to Cuba and gets on a plane or boat to Cuba, and he flies out to Cuba to where he's meeting I think one of those one of those cigar places, and he asks the clerk to see Doctoros, and the clerk's like, we haven't met a Doctoros in about 30 years, and Bond's like, say it's from Universal Exports, English branch, and the clerk gets on the phone,
Universal Exports doctors, like speaking in Spanish, and you have the court bring Bond to the cigar maker of this place, whose name is Raul, and he's smoking a Doctoros, and he's like, I never thought a Doctoros would ever be smoked. The flavor, the richness, and like, he's like many other things for the Universal Exports, Mr. Bond. And like he never, I don't think he introduced his name yet, or he did. But then what happens is we see the Quirk take out a pistol. It's a revolver, and he's pointing it at Bond. And you have Raul go, "I love my country, Mr. Bond. I don't want to do anything to betray it." And then Bond comes clean, says he's looking for Zhao, and Raul laughs the Quirk off, and the Quirk lowers the gun, and you have Raul basically like they're looking over each other, and like they're talking about one of the places that they're looking for Zhao in his office, and he's like the one place that your friend Zhao could go to escape is Los Organos. It's a clinic, but many different types of people go to the clinic. So Raul sends Bond to the clinic. Bond goes to this clinic, which is like a specific genetic clinic. Or no, he's outside of this hotel where there's people waiting to get into this specific clinic, and you have Bond sitting there waiting. Oh, and I forgot to mention this too. Once again, M is greatly played by Judi Dench, if any of you didn't notice. Like another great role for Judi Dench in this film. So good work from Judi Dench. And you have Bond, waiting to get into this clinic. And what happens is, in a classic pose, which I can't deny, was very sexy of Halle Berry to do, but Aunt Ursula Andress was a lot better, thank you. It wasn't as stylized, but Ursula Andress was still the better sexy. But I'll admit, Halle Berry made it sexy too. She came out of the ocean like that, very similar to Ursula Andress, but it was, done in slow motion and way more gravitas. It wasn't like subtle and simple like they did in Dr. No, which I like subtle and simple over the gravitas, but like you have Jynx come out of the ocean, played by Halle Berry. Once again, Halle Berry was okay in this movie. I don't hate her, but she was okay. And I must say that out of all the agents we've seen in this movie, I know there's a few of them, but I have to say that Halle Berry, you only see her like only wearing a little bit, but her government agent suit, somewhat to like the black ones that Bond wears. I love it. I love that red jumpsuit that Halle Berry wears in the movie. It's like I think she looks personally sexy in it. And what happens is you have like Jinx and Bond talking. They talk, they get to know each other, and they have this thing about like predators and owls, and like like they're all being coy and weird with each other. And Jinx asks Bond, "Well, what do predators do?" And he's like, "They feast like there's no tomorrow." So there's this quick thing where Bond and Jinx have this sexual intercourse part, where they're really getting it on passionately, nicely well directed scene between, Pierce Brosnan and Halle Berry. And Pierce Brosnan, I forgot to mention this too. He does this role really well for his last Bond film, since he hurt his knee on the hoverboard scene, or not hoverboard, hovercraft scene. He hurt his knee because he didn't stretch right and didn't prepare for it right, so he ended up hurting himself. And he realized that maybe his age was catching up with him, which is why he left Bond. But after that incident, he wanted to be a little safer and not do such demanding stuff. But you got to give Pierce Brosnan credit for continuing even after that pretty devastating injury, which he did suffer, and got to give him credit for that too. I forgot to mention that. Should have mentioned that near the beginning too. But Bond wakes up the next day, looks to see if Jinx there. Jinx is no longer there. He sees Jinx getting on a boat heading towards the Los Organos clinic, and you have Bond who goes to that one. I think it's either British or Australian guy who was there going to the same clinic, but basically opens the door for this one jerkish guy they saw there, basically being mean to the women. Basically he's a criminal. I think he had a Beretta or something like that pointed at the guy, and teasing him, saying he was gonna shoot him, and like he's like, "Do you want to be a Fidel Castrata?" and like, stuff like that. But what happens is Bond comes up to the guys with the wheelchair, and he's like, "The hell's this? I don't need no goddamn wheelchair." And like Bond's like, "You do now," and punches the dude in the face, and basically loads him up in a wheelchair, and pretends to be like his caregiver, loading him onto the boat, heading towards Los Organos. And Bond gets there. He's viewing the guy. He sees those armed guards at this genetics clinic. So he basically throws the dude into the wall to where he crashes, and he seeks around several different rooms to get into the clinic, and saying "Buenos dias, buenos dias" to several people as he's going along. So smooth, classic Bond. And Bond's like searching around the clinic, trying to find a way in. Taking out security cameras. Walking around. You have basically this one Cuban doctor explaining to Jynx, though, because Jynx is pretending she's getting a makeover, like spending, I think it was over $1 million she was going to spend with this guy to get a facial makeover. It was all a ruse, of course, but what happens is the doctor says, the process is very painful. We kill all the nerves in the face, and, we use fresh donors who won't be missed, vagrants, homeless, children who are orphans and lost, people who won't be missed. So basically saying that, they use and kill people who, are not worthless to society, when all life really matters. You just feel sad for people of, the vagrant way of life. But I mean, it's no reason to give them a death sentence, to give these criminals or people who want to disappear a new face. So what happens is like, Jinx gives the doctor the money, and the doctor's like, I like to think of myself as an artist. And, he's like looking over the check all greedily. And, I have to say, Jinx, Halle Berry has this really cool line. She's like, well, that's the thing about artists. Most artists aren't appreciated till after they're dead. And then she shoots him twice with her gun, I think, once in the chest and once in the head. So she kills him to basically go after to find something. And she's also burning her check and all the paperwork of her being there, and she puts C4 in the doctor's trash can as a way of possible escape, I guess. And she's searching for something too. And she's looking up Zhao's conversion into the medical thing, and seeing she's got to see what Zhao looks like when he's done with his treatment. And so I guess she's looking into Zhao too. And as we see Jinx do that, we see Bond catch up to Zhao. And Zhao is like in his sleeping thing, as the mask is like, getting ready to change his face. So we see that part of his makeup is over, but like Bond sort of disconnects it, but he's not. He just stops the machine working, but Zhao's still sleeping, and he sees how Zhao still has the diamonds embedded into his face. He's all bald now. He's all like whitish gray, looking weird, from all the pretty nice makeup application. Like his eyes were like, I think, a dull gray and things like that. And but he's still out of it. But this is after Discovery wakes up, and how Bond does that is he grabs Zhao's ID and he clutches it real hard, cutting it off to Zhao, and he's like hurting Zhao at the same time. And he's like, "Who's doing your makeup, Zhao? Your makeup, Zhao?" The same person who set me up in North Korea. So what happens is Zhao attacks Bond as Bond's interrogating him. They have a fight back and forth. All these different things, and magnetic stuff gets activated, and all this different stuff happens. Like Zhao, like shoots at Bond. There's like a fire starting in his examination room where he was, and Zhao takes off. Bond's chasing after him. Bond gets out of the room, sees that Jinx there, and he's like, "Jinx, the hell you doing here?" And like Jinx sets off her timer bomb that explodes in the office, and everybody's freaking out, trying to get out. Jinx jumps out the window. She's going after Zhao. Zhao and one of his guys are there. They commandeer this helicopter to get out. You have Bond chasing after Zhao. Jynx is chasing after Zhao, trying to shoot him in the helicopter. Takes out one of the guards, but can't get the pilot or Zhao. They fly away. Bond is chasing after Jynx. Doesn't quite get to her. What happens is sees how Jynx is cornered. Jynx throws off the skirt or towel she was wearing. She's in this nice pink bathing suit, and I hate to say it, and probably one of the weirdest CGI moments here. She basically does a back dive off this huge brick wall that's connected to the mountainside, and she basically dives into the water where there's some men of hers picking her up. And I mean, it was so bad because you see it where she's there and she just bends back, and in this quickly fashioned arc, she just goes into the water. So terrible CGI that scene, very bad. I mean, this is what I hate about Die Another Day too. The CGI they use in this film is flipping terrible. It's not. I mean, it's not the greatest, and there are some scenes that work, but it is pretty bad looking in this film throughout. So yeah, it's pretty flippin' terrible, I have to say. Second here, we're gonna get some more water here. Oh, yeah. Man. Good stuff, guys. Water is always good. And what happens is Bond sees that, and he also took, while fighting Zhao, took some a pendant from his neck that had a tube on it, and this tube had the African conflict diamonds in it. But he knows that's what they are because he saw them when he stopped Van Bjork from meeting Colonel Moon. And what goes on is he goes back to Raoul, and Raoul says, yes, the African conflict diamonds you've been through, but it also is from Gustav Graves' mine, who's a diamond dealer who basically struck rich of diamonds in the Arctic, several years ago, or just over a year ago. And, Bond wants to head back to England to stop him, and he's on the plane reading a article on Gustav Graves, which Gustav Graves is played by Toby Stevens. Does a good job in this one. You don't know who he is yet, and to spoil it for you, if you guys listen to what I do, Gustav Graves is Colonel Moon, where the genetic application was done properly, and he's disguised himself. He survived his fall over the side and into the river, and he's basically using the diamonds and everything as a front for his true intentions. And as we see, Bond's reading up on him on the plane, and the next scene has Gustav Graves, jumping out of the plane into the English square to where he's meeting a bunch of people, and he meets his secretary, who's there, who is named Miranda Frost, played by Rosamund Pike, who I think did a great job in this one, and she is the once again, spoiler, she's the Bond villainess for this one, who was the person who betrayed Bond in this, and all those different things. And we see where Bond is tracking Gustav Graves, and Gustav Graves goes to a club where they fence, and I think they do a few other things, but they have swords, guns, fencing, and what happens is you have, Graves fencing with another person, and this is where Madonna has a nice cameo where she's a fencing teacher, and her name is Verity, and it seems like Verity and Bond had a relationship at some point, and Verity explains what Miranda Frost, her protege, does, to where she said, oh, she took the gold at Sydney, and then Bond's like, by default, I remember. And she said, well, the guy facing her was on drugs, and his overdose was his own doing. So, she earned every bit of that. And we see the fencing helmet come off, and it shows Miranda smiling back at Verity, and Bond smiling back at her, and Verity's like, "Do you know how to fence, Mr. Bond?" And he's like, "Oh, I've been known how to keep my tip up." It's once again sexual innuendos of Bond at great style. I mean, you have to say you gotta love some really good sexual innuendos that happen. I mean they're enjoyable. I've got no qualms with it. So as it goes on, you have Bond meeting Gustav Graves, and you have Bond sort of teasing Graves with his diamonds, and other things like that, and Bond saying he wants a wager against Graves, and wants to face him for it. Graves wants to face off with him against it. Diamond for the diamond. So they fence each other, and Graves looks like he's getting the upper hand, but Bond comes back, and Bond I think scores Graves scores 2 hits, and then Bond scores 1 hit, and then what happens is while they're fighting, Bond whacks Graves in the hand with his fencing sword, and Graves, I guess, hand is bleeding or it's hurt, and Graves is teasing Bond earlier. It's like, "Oh dear me, do you want to continue?" And Bond does that right back. He's like, "Oh dear, do you want to continue, Graves?" And Graves is like, "Of course I want to bloody continue. But if we're upping the wager, but let's up the stakes of the wager." And what happens is Graves takes 2 swords, and they throw off their fencing outfits, and he tosses a sword to Bond, and he said, "Let's do this the old-fashioned way. First blood from the torso." And then there's this awesome scene where Graves and Bond are sword fighting throughout the whole entire club, and there's these awesome moments where they're just duking it out, going all over the club, wrecking the club, and a whole bunch of different stuff. And it gets to the point where Graves looks like he has the upper hand, but Bond comes back, slices Graves in the torso. Graves goes in the fountain. Bond stands there, getting ready to see if he attacks again. Graves looks like he's going to attack him again. Oh, sorry, guys. And Miranda comes in, and she's like, "That's enough." And Graves is like, "Huh, just a little sport, Miranda." And he's like, "Looks like you won, Mr. Bond." So I guess what happens is Bond not only gets to keep the diamond, but he gets paid, I think, a lot of money by Graves as well. And I think Graves invites Bond to his Icarus demonstration in the Arctic, and Miranda and Graves leave, and then while Bond is redressed, we have this one telegram guy say, "Message for you, Bond," and he's like, "Place needed a little redecorating anyway," so, it's always cool to have that scene. And you see Bond has a key that looks like it goes into the old English Union Station. So, Bond goes into this old English Union Station, and he's like, it's like one of the old tunnel bunkers from World War II, and M comes up and she says, "Well, I never thought I'd find you here," and Bond's like, "Abandoned station for abandoned agents," and they talk about what they did, about the troubles they had when Bond was captured, also about what Bond knows about Graves, and Bond's like, "Well, I don't work for you anymore, so I'm not going to tell you a thing," and then M's like, "Well, it looks like you've become useful again," and he's like, "Well, okay, then why don't you let me get on with my job?" And then we see Bond, what looks like him, back in the MI6 building. He's cleaning his gun, and then all of a sudden we hear 2 what sounds like silent pistol shots or silent gunshots, and we see Bond go out there. There's dead agents laying on the floor. We also see Moneypenny shot in the head, so we don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, you see Bond taking out a few of these men in black who look like professional soldier assassins. Bond's taking him out with his gun, taking him out in the ceiling, all around him, basically using his skills to good use. And then all of a sudden, we see Robinson come out, points the gun at him, and Robinson, like basically says, let's continue on, and they're heading towards M's main office, to where Robinson is carefully going around the corner. He goes in, gets shot by an agent. Bond's in there, sees how the assassin has a gun to M's head, and what happens is like, he shoots. I think he shoots M in the shoulder, to where M, like, I have to say, Judi Dench's reaction is great. It's like, what, like that, like, but M has enough strength to get away, and that distracts the assassin, and Bond takes out the assassin, and you have Q come out of nowhere like this is a virtual thing, and he's like, really, 007, I don't think an agent is supposed to shoot his own boss. And like, Bond's wearing these sunglasses which present a virtual world, and Bond's like, check the replay, you'll find out he's dead, and she just has a minor flesh wound. And like, Q's just like all flabbergasted. And the best thing about this is Q is greatly played by, and I mean, I wish they would have got him in the new Bond movies, but Q is greatly played once again by John Cleese. Like, he's no longer R, he's assumed the master of Q, except Bond doesn't call him that yet. He just calls him, Quartermaster throughout this thing until the end, when he accepts him as Q. But he's getting his gear from Q, and John Cleese does it, in a great role and stuff in this one. And what happens is like, there's all the old Bond gadgets, Rosa Club shoe, there's the rocket pack, which Bond turns on, that Q's trying to grab, there's the alligator crocodile that Bond hung in. So there's all these homages to the old Bond films, which was a nice touch in the scene, and that was great of Lee Tamahori and the writers to incorporate, because I actually liked that a lot. And you have Q show Bond some gadgets, like his new Walther, his new watch, and he's like, this is your 20th, I believe, and like Bond's like, my, how time flies, as a homage to how many Bond movies there have been, which that was also a nice touch. There's also a ring on his finger, which is like a sonic barrier, which can break glass and a few other objects in case Bond ever needs to use something like that. You have Q show Bond to his car, and he's like, here's your new car, and it's just like the train pallet coming at him, and Bond doesn't see anything, and like Bond says a funny line like, Q, maybe you've been down here too long, and like, Q basically says, like, just huffs, and like, he clicks the thing, and like, the car shows up, and he's like, you call this a Aston Martin Vanquish, we call it the Vanish, and the car comes into place from using the optic cameras on the car to give it the illusion of disappearance, and you have Bond go, Q, you must be joking. As I learned from my predecessor, Mr. Bond, I never joke about my work. So awesome to see John Cleese using and paying homage to Desmond Llewellyn about like that line, and that was a nice thing to have in this film too, paying an homage to Desmond Llewellyn and things like that. So it was very awesome to have. We also have Q going through the designs, what the car can do, and do things, and then he hands Bond a manual, and he's like, here you go, Bond, you can brush through that in a few hours. And what happens is Bond tosses the manual up there, and the motion tracker guns see it on the car, and they shoot the manual, and it's like and he's like, few hours only took a few seconds, Q. And like Q just looks at Bond and he's like, wish I could make you vanish. And walks away angrily. Awesome scene with Pierce Brosnan and John Cleese. I mean, really great scene. John Cleese was really great as Q. I wish they would have got him back more for the current crop of movies. But hey, they went with the younger Q, who I really don't care for, but whatever. And so you have Bond heading out to Antarctica. It's where you see he shows up and he opens the door and he's met by a man who's named Mr. Kill. He's like, I am Mr. Kill, and Bond goes, well, there's a name to die for, and just great stuff all around with that too. And what's awesome about Mr. Kill is played by Lawrence McCoy, who is best known for his work in Lord of the Rings at the time of Lurtz, Grishnak, the main troll in the Mordor army, and all those different things. So that's cool seeing how Lawrence McCoy was in the film, and you can actually see how he can look like Lurtz and things like that, and awesome. So I have to say, really, really cool overall. Just seeing Lawrence McCoy in a Bond film, and like he sees Graves come up, and he was parasailing on the ice, trying to beat his time, and he has his assistant Vlad, played by Michael Gorvey, come up and basically say what his time was, and like how he's got a new fast time, and he's like, Vlad, the parachute, stuck out again, so slow me down, so keep it up, and you have Bond, shaking hands with Graves, and they meet, they go inside, and then we also see how Jynx is showing up at this ice palace, because I guess that's what they call the ice building that Graves erected. It's called the Ice Palace, and they're at the party, and we also learn during this time that Miranda Frost, Rosamund Pike's character, is actually an MI6 agent, and where M is sending Miranda out there to watch Bond, so Bond doesn't screw it up, and also to get Bond back up, and Miranda Frost is like, well, Bond is death for breakfast, and he's a perverted agent. I don't want to work with him, and like you know Judi Dench is like, well, you can decide if you need to pump, Bond for information or do any of that, and, so it's like both playing with each other and stuff like that and things. So nice little scene, a nice comedic scene with Rosamund Pike. But getting back to it, we see how Miranda Frost is there, and she's meeting Bond, and Bond's like, do I have the pleasure for you tonight, Miranda? And she's like, Bond, just keep it in your way, like not showing that that Bond is aware that she is an agent yet or whatnot. But they continue on, they have it. There's also a party that they're having, and Miranda's talking with Bond there. Jinx comes up. There's this banter. Both women seem to be getting jealous of each other, and like, because Bond is saying he's an astrologist, and this one has his cover, and Miranda Frost is like, oh, Mr. Bond was giving me his explanation of the Big Bang Theory. Have you ever heard it? And Miranda's like, I think I got the thrust of it. And I admit, as good as that scene was, there's something with that line that when Halle Berry says she has the thrust of it, it just, I don't know, it came off as not as natural, and I don't know, made me groan. I mean, I don't know why, but that line just made me groan. I mean, Jinx did not make that worthwhile, in my opinion, with Halle Berry's performance at all. Once again, sorry about that, guys, but hey. And what happens is Graves is getting ready to do his Icarus demonstration, and he invites people out onto the snowy night outside the Ice Palace on the terrace. And Bond knows how there's these Koreans there. There's like these 5 Koreans that are there watching Gustav Graves. And like what happens is Graves explains how Icarus is this satellite that can harness the power of the sun, and when he uses it the right way, and the satellite opens up, the satellite the sun hits the satellite and reflects down onto the area so brightly that people need to wear sunglasses, and I like how the only two not wearing sunglasses are Graves, Jynx, and Bond. So it's nice that they're gonna might mention how those three are gonna have possibly some sort of standoff at some point, and like you know, and like Graves is saying how Icarus is going to provide renewable energy for the world, constant sunlight, crops that will never wither because it'll never get dark in those areas, and if you provide them enough water, it'll be good. So Graves makes this thing like it'll be a supporting bit of humanity, and what happens is you have after the speech you have Bond and oh yeah, you have Bond and Bond trying to use his invisible car to check out what's going on, and he sees how Vlad is with Vlad is with Graves, and so is Mr. Kill, and they put the whole stuff that they were using with the Icarus machine away, like the controller box and stuff, and what happens is you have like Graves talking with Vlad as Graves laying there on a machine to where Zhao comes in. Zhao pulls up the face, and they're talking. It's like they speak in Korean and they hug, and like Zhao's like, is it painful? He's like, it's very painful, all the hours, but I don't need to sleep until I'm done. A few hours on the dream machine keeps me sane, and so they go into it about their plan and about how Bond's been this close to him and hasn't even figured out who he is, and he's thinking he's being all clever with it. And as Bond was trying to get a look at the inside of this facility, you see where like Bond is possibly getting noticed by a few soldiers, and he's trying to figure out how to get out of it, and then he doesn't know how, and then Miranda Frost grabs Bond, and they start kissing, and you have Mr. Kill and a few of the men standing there looking at him, and he's like, I don't think they're too convinced, Miranda. Put your back into it, so they start passionately over kissing and stuff, and they're looking at, okay, so this guy wasn't doing anything. Let's move on, and so they kiss, and it looks like they're about to go off and actually have sex with each other. So they're like having their unique moment. Jynx sneaks into the lab to where she comes from a top portion of the dome, sneaks in. She goes around. She sees somebody on the dream machine. She opens it up, and she sees how Zhao's in there. Zhao opens his eyes and wakes up, and before she can do anything, Graves comes out of nowhere and electrocutes Jynx with this electrical glove that Vlad gave, to where if like there's a suit where an electrical discharge goes into Graves' body that he can use against his weapons that he's like like, how many volts of electricity is this? Like 50,000? And Vlad's like, no, it's 100. Like, so big bad guy who can really cause a lot of damage, which no human should recover from right away, but in an action movie they do, so hey. And like gloves, and Jynx gets electrocuted with this glove, and what happens is Jynx ends up getting captured, and Zhao is interrogating her, and he's like, who sent you, and all these different things, and she isn't saying anything, and she's like, she like Jynx isn't saying much, and what happens is like Zhao asks again, who sent you, and then Halle Berry as Jynx says probably the most stupid line I have ever heard, and she's like, yo mama, and I want you to know she's very disappointed in you, and I'm like, even when I was younger in 2002, I did not laugh at that line at all. I cringed, because that is a cringy line. I don't know what they were thinking about giving Halle Berry that line to say, or if that was Halle Berry ad-libbing, but oh god, is that a terrible line. I hate that line. Yo mama. And I'm like, oh, good lord. I remember when they played it in the trailers, I cringed in the trailers. I cringed in the theaters. I cringe every time I watch it on DVD. I was not thrilled with that use of that line at all. So, oi. And, but luckily, Jynx doesn't divulge anything, and she actually gets knocked out from all the electrical shocks, and then, Zhao hands Mr. Kill a gun, and Mr. Kill's like, oh, I want to use a laser, because actually, the mine is fake, but they actually have real lasers there to keep up the image, and what happens is, Mr. Kill uses the laser, and it's spreading slowly to Jynx's face. We also have a point where we go back to Bond and Miranda, where they've just had sex with each other and, made love, and Miranda's saying, this is dangerous, you're a double O, we shouldn't be doing this, and Bond's like, hey, it's part of the adventure, let's just live while we're young. And what happens is Bond keeps his gun under the pillow. You had Miranda there. As always, Bond keeps his gun under the pillow, and he thinks he loads his gun and loads it, cocks it back, and his Walther PP9, and he runs off to check the Gustav Graves line as we see Miranda looking rather concerned. I will be back again. I'm going to refill my water and get more water, so be right back. Sorry guys, I had to get a bit of a snag there as well, yeah. Didn't think this would take me so long, but I didn't think I'd be talking about certain deep stuff as well. Because, this movie does have a lot to go through, so it's not like a quick breeze. And then, yeah, so, Bond goes into the dome. He cuts a hole with his watch with a mini laser underneath the ice. Goes underneath and, swims through the freezing cold. Got to give the guy credit for that. Went underneath where Jynx went over the top. And, Bond comes out the other end, and he goes in there, he's looking around, and then he hears grunting and struggling, and it's Jynx, trying to avoid the laser coming at him. And what happens is you have Bond seeing Jynx, and Bond turns off the laser, and it doesn't get on Jynx's face because Jynx was doing trying to slide over as she could, tied down to this metal examination table, and tied down to this tied down to the metal examination table. She really couldn't move. So as soon as Bond comes out of nowhere, you have Mr. Kill who comes out, starts battling Bond. Bond and him start battling, and what happens is they hit the switch on the laser thing that activates all the lasers, and they're battling in this probably one of the best CGI shots throughout this whole film, where they're battling in between the lasers, hitting each other, trying to get at each other, tackling each other, avoiding the lasers, and Bond and Mr. Kill duke it out for quite some time, for a few moments, until where Bond gets Mr. Kill, or Mr. Kill gets Bond backed up against one of the walls, and he's taking out his metal hairpin to where he's going to try to stab and kill Bond with it. All of a sudden, Jynx has been trying to, because her examination table that she's on and stuff is moving wildly along with the other lasers, and she grabs a hold of the laser switch, hits a laser, turns off all the lasers, gets one behind Mr. Kill's head, and she gets Mr. Kill in the back of the head to where the laser goes out through the front of his mouth, and it pretty gruesome death for Mr. Kill, and she saved Bond's life, she saved his, so nice equal turn for both people there. Basically, both get free, both get out of the dome. You have Jynx wanting to go with Bond to stop Graves. Bond's like, no, get Miranda, tell her what's going on. You two get out of here. I'm going for Graves and Zhao. And at this point too, Jynx tells Bond about the examination chair too, where she's like, I'm wondering if what we could do is if we could find out who did this, because I think Zhao brought it with him from the clinic in North Korea, and Bond's like, no, Zhao couldn't have. it belongs to another Korean. So that's where Bond gets it in his head that the wheel starts spinning, and Bond learns that, oh, Colonel Moon is probably still alive, and it's probably Gustav Graves this entire time. So Bond finally figured that out, and it feels like, and you can tell in his face that Pierce Brosnan played it off like he's such a fool for falling for it, and he doesn't like being tricked, but hey, happened either way. And we also find out while Bond is saving Jynx that she works for the NSA, part of the American government. And, so the NSA and MI6 were in this together in many ways, so that was a nice little touch too, because it was usually the CIA, but I guess the NSA could be well involved in these things too. And, yeah, because it's the National Security Agency, so that makes sense. And just like our CIA Central Intelligence Agency. So hey, hey. So you have Jinx go to Miranda. Miranda's no longer in the room, and people are hurrying up and getting ready to pack out to leave the Ice Palace. Jinx goes to Miranda's room. Miranda isn't there, and the doors automatically shut on Jinx, locking her in her room, and or in the room, I should say, not her room, but Bond in Miranda's room. And what happens is you have like Gustav Graves coming into the room to like finally get his final preparations, and then you have Bond shut like a case, and he's sitting on Gustav Graves' desk, and he's like, "So you live to die another day, Colonel Moon." Roll credits, as Cinema Sin would say. So obviously, title, movie name drop there, and they have this cool banter back and forth, saying, you never knew it was me. How does it feel? The betrayal, and all of a sudden, you have you have Zhao come up, and Bond thinks he's outnumbered, and then what happens is you have Miranda come in, because Bond was watching Miranda come up, and Miranda comes in, points the gun at Graves' head, and then you have Graves go, "Oh, so Miss Frost is not who she seems," and then he's like, "Shocking, I know the point of betrayal," and then Graves is like, "By the way, Mr. Bond, did you ever figure out who betrayed you in North Korea?" And Bond's like, "Only a matter of time," and Graves is like, "You never thought of looking inside your own organization," and that's when, in a stone cold look, Miranda just switches the gun on Bond, points at him with just a stone cold thing, and then Bond realizes, like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. So he tries to shoot at Miranda, but he realizes the gun's empty because Miranda emptied the clip. And she's like, "It was so nice of you to bring your gun to bed with us, James." And like Bond is like, yes, occupational hazard, and like he realizes that he says others will be after me, and Grace is like, "Oh yes, your American friend. Well, she's trapped in the ice palace, and she's going to probably suffer a cold, frigid death." And then like Zhao and Graves beat up on Bond a little bit. Bond's trying to survive, and like all those things that Miranda said. It's like James Bond. Unconditional love and death for breakfast, and Miranda just has a sinister look on her face, and she's like, "I'm sorry it happened this way, James, but it really is death for breakfast." And then what happens is the bottom floor of Graves' office is glass, so Bond takes that sonic ring he has, twists it breaks the glass. Both Miranda and Zhao fall through it, and Graves steps back to where he doesn't fall through it. So Bond is trying to escape. Miranda and Zhao are shooting after him. He's missing, and Bond escapes. He gets into the parasailer shit. Oh, Graves is using. So he gets to the parasailer thing that Graves is using. He takes off with it. Graves has Vlad in his office open up his gear, and he turns on Icarus to where he points it at a laser end, shows up on the end of the satellite, and he basically can harness the power of the sun as a laser, and he starts like burning like the part of the Arctic shelf with this laser, and Bond's doing his best to outrun it and try to escape it. There's also a quick scene too where Miranda shows up with a bunch of men at Jynx. Jynx tries to fight back. She learns that both her and Bond have been set up. Jynx says, "Oh yeah, James had me," and like Jynx is like, "Oh really? I didn't think he was that desperate." They're basically both bantering a bit back and forth, and like Miranda's looking at Jynx, and she's like, "Pretty good tailoring. I hope it doesn't shrink when it gets wet." So they lock Jynx back in there, and Jynx is probably wondering, "Oh crap, what's gonna happen to me?" Bond is still on the run from Graves, in the parasailer trying to escape. He goes over the side of a Arctic shelf to where he's stuck there. Graves can't find him, and what happens is Graves cuts off a part of the Arctic shelf to where Bond falls, and Bond takes out the parachute of the parasailer, and he uses it with a part of the trunking part of the parasailer to use as his foot to glide on the water. So when the Arctic shelf part falls and he flies, he's using the parachute and the parasailer to glide through the water, which I have to say this part was pretty awful CGI as well. Bond just like surfing through the water. The water looks fake. Bond doesn't even look that realistic. And I mean, I'm glad they used up close personal shots of Pierce Brosnan trying to do this to make it realistic. But yeah, the faraway shots with Bond as a CGI character and the icebergs and the water looked pretty fake. It didn't look realistic at all. It looked pretty flippin' bad in my opinion, so pretty terrible CGI there. That's what I was not a fan of in this movie at all. Their use of CGI was really bad. I mean, I know that is probably going to be a thing going into the 007 films in the future, but yeah, I am not a fan of CGI being used in this film. I love the practical effects and stunts they've done through all these films prior, and man, sometimes CGI is better left alone and not used at all, and I hate to say it, that is the ultimate truth. It's better not to use CGI in most cases. So, Bond basically escapes, gets back up to where he needs to be. I don't know how back on the Arctic continent, but he does. You'd think he'd go way out into the ocean considering where he was headed. But oh well, that's just me. Um, you know, Bond, makes his way back, so it looks like he's, walking back quite a long way. You have Gustav Graves and Vlad getting on a plane right before it takes off, and as they're getting ready for takeoff, Graves is like, "Time to give the American a bath." So he hits a purging signal on the satellite, and it starts to destroy the ice palace, breaking down the ice and starting to melt it. You see Jynx getting worried, and she starts using the ice furniture that she had to chip away at the door of the ice palace where she was trapped. And you have Bond trying to get back. He sneaks into his camouflage car, takes it. He's waiting. You have Zhao coming out to check out what's going on. All of a sudden, you have this guy on a snowmobile basically gets hits by the part of the car, and he goes flipping in the air. You have Zhao looking at it like, this is strange, but then he realizes that Bond's invisible. And what's stupid is you have Zhao basically say, all units report now, and no units ever report themselves. They are never seen again for whatever reason. It's just Zhao chasing James Bond throughout this entire place. And, there's like a real cool Arctic battle that they actually filmed. I don't think it was the Arctic. I think they went to British Columbia to film this, where they wanted it froze over. And I know in the actual film they had to wait a long time for the ice to freeze over because the ice was very thin and it was very dangerous to you on thin ice. But it was actually cool how they had this car chase and battle with Zhao and Bond having these superpower cars, missiles, and gadgets, just firing and fighting each other in the British Columbian Alps or wherever they were, and battling actually on the races of ice. So I have to say that was a very awesome scene to see, and how they actually created that. And what happens is, they battle each other. They're running out of stuff or guns and everything, and Vlad and Colonel and Gustav Graves, they didn't wait for Zhao to show up. They just took off without him, and all the other North Korean generals and everything else were assembled, and I guess they got Graves's or Colonel Moon's father there, and you have to the point where they're going to set up at the meeting soon, but before then, this a lot of talking this and probably need to breathe a bit better. I'm mostly going to once again get water. I forgot to put it back over here with me, so once again I'll be back. It is nectar of the gods, man. I tell you, water is really nectar of the gods. But like, yeah, the battle between Zhao and Bond actually lead into the ice palace, to where they're breaking everything up with all the ice, the glass, and everything that's breaking apart. And it's a really cool visual and scene just to see these stunts and everything done there in this place, and it's really awesome just to see everything done that way. And I think for this scene, they broke so much glass in this film in 2002, so much actual glass and candy glass, that I think the Guinness Book of Records said this was the biggest film to use this much glass breakage in any film. So that's actually a pretty cool side thing for this film to have, because when you look at it, they do break a lot of ice fixtures, a lot of glass fixtures, so a lot of stuff is breaking in this one scene. And what happens is, you have Zhao and Bond battling, and what happens is they're battling up through the ice palace, through up the stairs, and you have a thing where Bond is there, and it looks like he's trapped on one of the ends. You have Zhao grinning. He gets these large metal sword spikes on the end of his vehicle coming out, and he rams it towards Bond. Bond lost his optical camouflage for quite a bit during this fight, because basically Zhao shot it off, but the optical camouflage was restored. So Bond hits tire traction on his wheels to bring out spikes to climb up the ice, turns on the optical camouflage. When Bond disappears, you have Zhao freaking out. He tries to brake, but he's going way too fast. Goes through the edge he was going to send Bond through, and he goes crashing into I think part of the ice of the ice palace, and you see Bond like removing the optical camouflage, and he climbed up part of the wall with the traction spikes on his tires. So he forces it down. He opens up part of his window. He sees Zhao swimming back up, and you can see where the cold is affecting him. Because that water's probably got to be flipping freezing at that point. He was in no gear, unlike Bond and Jynx were in. And Bond shoots this ice chandelier, shoots it like once or twice. It goes down and skewers Zhao with the ice chandelier, effectively killing him. So tough death for Zhao. That was a very, very gruesome death for Zhao. So yeah, you gotta say, like, holy crap, that was jeez. And then you have Fudnuts. Bond go and rescue Jynx from her area where the water is filled up. She's going through hypothermia. She's about to drown too. So Bond crashes his car through his hotel room. Jynx comes out to the front window. Bond uses his ring finger to break the windshield. Jynx comes in. They go out and break in through the dome, and then through the warm water that was in the dome to create the illusion. Bond and Jynx jump in there, and he's trying to warm Jynx up, and he's like, "Come on, it's warm in here. Come back to me." And through a bit of kissing and CPR and prodding, Jynx luckily wakes up, and she does say a funny line. She's like, "What kept you?" And so it was like, "Jeez Louise." you learn how also Jynx and Bond are regrouping. They're regrouping at an airfield in South Korea, and Bond and Charles Robinson are meeting up, and Jynx is meeting up with Michael Madsen's character Falco, because I guess Falco is also part of the NSA, which I didn't know, but yeah, so they're meeting up together. So basically, M and the MI6 send Bond on on their plane to go stop Graves, and what happens is Falco. Yeah, Falco didn't want Bond being the only one doing it. And he's like, Jinx, you think I'm gonna leave this in the hand of the British? You go with them. And they use like a glider jump to get onto Graves's or no, that's what they do. Like Graves was getting on his plane, and I forgot. I thought they used the. Oh wait, yeah, they used glider jumps to land in the North Korean airfield, and like Graves, I forgot. They didn't get on the plane yet. But they were getting ready to get on Graves's plane in the North Korean airspace. And what happens is you have Bond and Jinx trying to assassinate him with a sniper shot, but what happens is too many cars and things get in their way. They stop them, so Jinx and Bond have to hurry and board the plane. They get in through one of the tire wheels and they get on the plane trying to stop them. Jinx goes to the goes to the pilot office and or no, to the cockpit to stop the pilot from you know like going to where they need to go, and then Bond is headed to Gustav Graves to stop him. When Jinx gets there, Jinx stops the pilot and she takes control, and then you have Miranda show up, and Miranda has her sword at Jinx's throat, and she wants her to put the plane back into position. Jinx puts it back into position, but she's having the plane head right towards the laser of Icarus, because Gustav Graves activated Icarus to go into the South Korean territory to destroy the minefields and to destroy the South Korean base. And I think they launched a missile at the satellite, and the missile was eviscerated by the laser that Gustav Graves fired at it. Like there was nothing left. I don't know if it was nuclear or if it was just a regular ballistic missile, but yeah, easily got destroyed. And so when Jinx does that and the plane gets targeted, everybody gets affected, but you have Miranda and Jinx have this, I'll admit, the fight that the Miranda Frost and Jinx that Halle Berry and Rosamund Pike had was, really good. It was well choreographed. They made it believable. The two looked like they were in very well sync. It was a very nice fight that they had, and looked like oh yeah, Jinx threw one of her throwing knives at Miranda earlier, but it hit a book and the book fell. And what happened was you had the book lay there, so you knew that was possibly going to come into play. And what happens is Miranda Frost during the fight had the upper hand on Jinx, and Miranda actually goes, "I can read your every move," and then Jinx grabs the book with the knife in it, stabs Miranda right in the chest, and Miranda's like, "Oh!" And then in a line that I didn't mind, probably one of Halle Berry's best lines in it, she's like, "Read that," and then she kicks the knife into Miranda's chest more, bitch. And then, Miranda basically gets killed and, died. And then, when we head back to the parts with Bond, is secretly seeing this, and what happens is we have Vlad bringing in Gustav Graves' father into the scene, and General Moon is there, and Graves is like, "Do you not recognize me, father?" And General Moon's like, I don't know you. And then like he starts speaking to him in Korean, and then he also says, I remember what my father taught me. He says an old saying from his father, and his father's like, it's you. And then like there's this part where like it looks like his father's embracing him, and he's looking at him as Gustav Gray's feeling him, and he looks like he doesn't know him, and he says, my son, what have you done to yourself? And and like yeah, Graves is going to show his father what Icarus can do, and while Icarus's sun laser's destroying everything, General Moon's getting worried. He's like, "What are you doing? This isn't good." He's like, Icarus will destroy everything in the landmines, missiles, everything. And then General Moon's like, "The Americans will send nuclear warheads. Icarus will swat them from the sky." And General Moon is like, personally, in many ways, the only one seeing sense in this because he knows this is going to cause endless war throughout the world, and he sees how Vlad and all the other generals are nodding at this approvingly. And what happens is General Moon takes one of the guns from the generals, and he's pointing them at Gustav Graves, and Bond is seeing all this just in intrigue and shock. He knows he can't get involved yet, but he's just like in shock about all this. And what happens is you have Graves go, "So you would kill your own son, father?" And General Moon's like, "My son died long ago." So like he even knows that Colonel Moon, even though brash and impatient, like Gustav Graves isn't even the same Colonel Moon that he used to be anymore. And what happens is Graves gets close. He electrocutes his father with 100,000 volts, and like takes the gun from his father, and like in ways, Colonel or General Moon and Gustav Graves are having this final embrace with each other. And sorry, my dog was barking, so that's why I keep looking over that way. So they have this like final embrace with each other. But what happens is you have Graves go, "I'm sorry." You're like, he either says, "I'm sorry, father," or "You disappoint me, father," or something like that. And then you just hear a gun blast, and you see where General Moon was like, I think, shot in the chest or in the heart, one of the two, and he falls down dead. And they have some nice Korean somber music playing, which I thought was a nice touch because I was actually upset and saddened by that because Colonel Moon's father saw sense where Colonel Moon slash Gustav Graves couldn't at this whole thing. And once again, even people who are a part of these communist or dictator countries, they can have sense. Not all the time do they have sense, but they can have it. And Colonel Moon was definitely not one of those people. Graves definitely not one of those people. So I mean, I was actually upset when General Moon was murdered like this in the film. That was actually a sad scene to me. And and the icing on the cake was, which this ticked Bond off finally too. It was shocking enough to see that General Moon, his own son killed his father, but he also had the General Star, and he pinned it on his chest, like, I've finally earned the rank of general, and that really ticked Bond off. And what happened is oh yeah, like Bond comes out of nowhere to shoot Graves, and then one of the men, like I think struggle with Bond. I think the door gets shut, or no, yeah, it was one of the windows. One of the windows, because his plane had big like dome windows. One of the windows gets shot, and all the generals and go flying out the window to their death. So does Vlad. Vlad goes flying out the window to his death too. So bye bye Vlad. And Bond and Gustav Graves are fighting each other, and also that's when the laser comes up, and the laser causes problems as they're fighting and doing all these like awesome moves. And when Bond looks like he's getting the upper hand, you have Graves hit the electrical thing on his suit, basically electrocuting or no, that's not what happens right away. Like, because Graves will get electrocuted himself too, but Bond avoids it, but he grabs Bond by the neck with one of his gauntlet gloves, and he electrocutes Bond there too. And Bond goes down on the ground, and Graves comes out as the plane is deteriorating. As the plane is deteriorating, when it went into the laser, because like I said, Jynx brought it into the path of the sun laser, and the plane's deteriorating and going down. You have Graves come out like he has a pair of parachutes, and he's like, "Oh look, parachutes for the both of us." and then he tosses one, and he's like, "Whoops, not anymore." And he's like, "See, Bond, you may not dream, but my dreams can kill you. Time to face destiny." And what happens is Bond pulls the cord on Graves' parachute, and Graves goes out the window to where he's like holding on and trying not to go in because he's about to head right into the plane turbine, and he's holding on. And Bond gets up, and he's like, "Gustav Graves, time to face gravity." And then he basically punches the failsafe on Graves' suit, and Graves gets electrocuted his own self, and he lets go, and he gets chunked in the plane turbine. I love it. Excellent death for that villain. Graves definitely deserved it. And Bond and Jynx meet up, and they basically get into a helicopter to where, I guess Graves had a lot of his sports cars in the back, and they open up the back hatch on a treadmill thing as the plane's going down, and the cars go down and everything, and then the plane goes down, and then I think the plane finally explodes or crashes in midair, and then they're still going down. Their helicopter that they both got in is spinning out of control rapidly. Bond is having trouble starting it, and I guess there were a whole bunch of African conflict diamonds in the back where Jinx is like, "Well, at least if we die, we're gonna die rich." And Bond looks back and he's like, "Oh, those." And and luckily, as they're falling at the last minute, right when they're about to drop, Bond, in classic hero fashion, gets a helicopter started. They crest over the hill, and they're flying off. And then you have these farmers who have to deal with these sports cars and their paddy fields now, which I'm pretty sure they're not too happy about. But there's these sports cars that are just sticking out of the dirt and out of the paddy fields. I'm pretty sure they were ticked. And you have a thing where near the movie ends, you have Moneypenny, still played by Samantha Bond, and the last time we see Samantha Bond in the film. So once again, a nice farewell to Samantha Bond in these films as well, who I thought did a great Moneypenny for 4 films. Same amount of length as Pierce Brosnan. So for 4 films, I think Samantha Bond did a great Moneypenny. I wish her hair stayed longer, because I liked her in GoldenEye with the long hair, but she had it short for the remainder. But I wish she would have kept it long, because I think Samantha Bond looked a lot better with the longer hair in GoldenEye. But once again, that's just me. But yeah, so we see Moneypenny typing up a report on Miranda Frost about how she was a traitor, and how the file was case closed. And what happens is Bond comes in and talking sensually to Moneypenny. Moneypenny's talking sensually back. He whisks Moneypenny away from her desk, and they start kissing passionately, like he's finally gonna have his moment with her. And everybody knows that Moneypenny has never had a moment with James yet. You always think that she wanted that and she needed it, but she never had a moment. And while they're kissing, having this great moment that's lasting a few seconds, all of a sudden you hear Q out of nowhere go, "Moneypenny," and you see Moneypenny shoot up. She's wearing the glasses, and she's like, oh, yes, I was just trying it out. And part of her shirt's open. She's trying to rebutton it, and she's like, "It's intense. Yeah, it's rather difficult, isn't it?" "Yes, very difficult." And, Q's looking at her like, "What were you really doing?" So, the closest Moneypenny has ever gotten to Bond is in a virtual thing. I admit that was a great scene there. That was a cool thing. And then the movie ends with Bond and Jinx having sex, and they're being sensual with the diamonds, and Bond's like, "We really should return these," and Jinx is like, "Still the good guys, huh?" It's like, yeah, you think you really want to go rogue? The NSA and MI6 will track you down. And trust me, I don't know about you, Jinx, but I know it's not in Bond's character to always fully go rogue like that until at least a certain mission's done. Bond, in my opinion, is always a patriotic character. If there's ever a thing to have him go completely unpatriotic, it better be for a good reason. And if it's a stupid reason, I will not like it. But hey, we'll see where it goes with some of the new Bond films, because I've not liked the thuggish, brutish style of the new Bond films. I've not enjoyed them at all. But or no, I've enjoyed them, but it's not the same feeling at all. I mean, Daniel Craig, I think, was a great Bond. I just think they have not handled, these types of things in the best view. At least, that's my opinion. And I think this stuff could have been handled a hell of a lot better than what we ended up really getting. And I mean, this was a good film. Like I said, certain things with the CGI, certain things that Lee Tamahori talks about, and the special features and everything. It's a little weird at times, but this still was a really good, enjoyable movie. A great movie to end the original Bond series with. I must say, I know I wasn't the big. I know you heard me say several times. I'm not the big fan of Jynx here, Halle Berry, but she had quite a few good moments, and she made an all right, Bond girl for this film. She wasn't the best Bond girl, but she definitely was not the worst. I have to say that is definitely, definitely, Holly, Holly Goodhead, or I'll even say from Diamonds Are Forever, Plenty O'Toole, because I was not into Plenty O'Toole at all. I think Plenty. I mean, if that is the correct Bond girl, I may be wrong, but whoever the main Bond girl was in Diamonds Are Forever, I wasn't too into her. So those two, I think, take the cake for worst Bond girl. And then the third would have to probably be. I have to agree with my folks. Tanya Roberts is probably the third, and View to a Kill. And then fourth would have to be. I mean, I like Britt Eklund, and Britt Eklund's a good actress, and she's very hot, but Britt Eklund is very stupid as Moneypenny. So I have to say, or not Moneypenny, Goodnight. Mary Goodnight. So I have to say Mary Goodnight would be number 4. So yeah, she's not as bad as those. So thank God for that. But overall, good to decent movie. I would give this one a solid 8 out of 10. Solid 8 out of 10 for the last Bond film. Great one for Brosnan to end on. John Cleese, Samantha Bond, Colin Salmon, Judi Dench goes on to continue it. But I mean, yeah, this was a good one for a lot of people to end on. And I wish we could have saw Colin Salmon on Goldeneye. Personally, I would have loved to see Colin Salmon be a part of that. If he was all part of the 4 films like Samantha Bond was. But yeah, other than that, I mean, good movie, good stuff. What do you guys think? Do you like or not Goldeneye? Do you like Die Another Day? Is this one of your hated, or do you find it like me a good film? Not the best Bond film, but a good one. Just leave a comment on the YouTube page below, and just let me know what you think. Thumbs up the video if you liked it. And just let me know what you think, because like I say, I love talking about these movies, and I know this was a near 2-hour one. Jeez Louise, I hate to think what I'm gonna do with I guarantee if when we get into the 3 and 4-hour films, the 3 4-hour films that I own, we're gonna talk about certain things. Maybe not everything, but we will talk about certain things. Because yeah, it's like yeah, I do not want to go through a whole film that's like 3 4 hours long. Not like this, because I admit if the 2-hour films are always gonna be like 2 hours in length here or something like that, almost even with my ranting, yeah. If I have to make 2-parters or something to these guys, I will. But yeah, I want certain things to be, a certain way. But yeah, just, let me know what you guys think overall, though, alright? But this is 012 Boku coming at you with another movie review, and I will see you later, guys, alright? Deuces.